Yeah, so in the previous session, we were discussing about OS view of process, wherein we discussed the OS deals with the processes by maintaining these two informations. One is process context, and next is process control block. So process context we discussed. So process context is also known as process environment. So what are all there in the process environment we discussed, and we saw this table. So now we shall discuss about the process control block or PCB, process control block. So what all process control block has? So in this diagram we are already familiar with. It will have the process ID, nothing but the name of the process. So this ID is unique. It is similar to having a name, or it is similar in a particular like that. So it is unique. So what do you mean by unique? So process ID will not repeat. So no two processes will have the same ID. That cannot happen. So each process will have a unique ID. Okay, so each student will have a separate USN number. No two students USN numbers are same. Like that. So process ID, then process state. So GPR, general purpose register contents, and program counter value. So which is the next instruction this particular process is supposed to execute. That is the address that program counter will have. Yeah, so this contains three kinds of information concerning the process. So one is identification such as process ID, the ID of its parent process, and ID of the user who created it. Okay, so process ID contains these three. One is process ID, then its parent's process ID, and ID of the user. See, parent process means, see, so if you remember the hierarchy, so program, okay, so under program, so there can be multiple processes. So let's say process P1, P2, P3. So and this process, each process can create a child process. Okay, so P1 can create a child process P11. This is child process. So in such case, this child process will contain the process ID of its parent process, because it has to keep track of its parent. Okay, who is its parent? So to keep track of that, so the process ID of the parent will also be stored in the process control block. So that is what you mean by the process its parent contents of PS. Okay. So next, so this is the identification information, right? So after that, the process state information. So such as its state and contents of PSW, program status word, nothing but the flags. So about the carry flag, about the overflow flag, okay. So about the negative flag, zero flag, so like that. So that is also contained in PCB, and along with that, the general purpose register contents, okay. And then the information that is useful for controlling its operation, such as priority and its interaction with other processes. So totally three information PCB contains. First information is identification information. Identification information such as process ID, its parent's ID, and ID of the user who created it. There can be multiple users of a system. So which user has created that process? That is also kept in track. This is the first information. Next information is process state information. So state information. So in state information, GPR contains PSW and process state. So we shall discuss in detail about each process. So it can be in different states. Which are those states? We shall see that later. And the third content, the third information that PCB contains is the information that is used for controlling its operation, such as priority and its interaction with other process. So one process can communicate with other process, okay, for some data exchange. So that is what is communication or interaction. So along with that, it also contains pointer field that is used by the kernel to form PCB lists for scheduling. That is a list of ready processes. Okay, so along with this, there is a pointer also. So what is this pointer used for? So I'll just give an example. So this, let's say this is the PCB of the process P1. Okay, So this is the PCB of process P1. It contains the informations like the identification information. Okay, so that is the first type of information. Next is process state information, and next is the information for its operation. Okay, so after all these three, it also contains a pointer field. It contains a pointer field. So I'll call it as PTR. PTR field. This is for P1. So let's say next process is P4. Okay, and next process is P10. Fine. So what is the use of this pointer field? That is what I'm talking about. So this pointer field, why it is used is, see, these three processes P1, P4, and P10. So they are all waiting for the CPU. Let's assume that they are waiting for the CPU. So when a process waits for the CPU, so always remember the process waits for a CPU only if it has acquired all the other resources that are needed for its operation. Okay, it is already acquired all the other resources that are required for its operation, and the only resource it requires now is the CPU. In that case only, in that condition only, it is waiting for the CPU. So we'll assume that all these three are waiting for the CPU. So out of these three, let's say P1 has come first. Okay, so P1 has come first. After P1, let's say P10 has come for next, and then at last P4 has come. Okay, so this has come first, and this has come second, and this has come third. Okay, so but all the three wants to use the CPU. Let's say it is a first come first serve policy. So whichever process has come first, that will be given the first chance to use the CPU. So in that case, so this will be the first process P1. So after P1, which is the next process P10. So it has to link these PCBs so that a list is formed, a queue is formed. Okay, the operating system has to link these PCBs in an order in which they have come, so that a queue is formed, a list is formed, so that it is easy for the OS to process the list one after the other. So that is why this pointer field will be used. So first is P1. So after P1, which process is there waiting for CPU? P10. So this pointer field will have the connection to this pointer field of the P10. Okay, of the P10, because after P1, next in the list is P10. So there is a connection from this pointer field to this pointer field. And after P10, which is the next process, P4. So from this pointer field to the next pointer field, so that is for P4, process P4, there is a connection. So this is how the list will be formed. So after P1, the next in the list is P10. So there is a connection from this pointer field to this P10 pointer field. From P10 pointer field, there is a connection to next in the list, which is P4. Right? And after P4, there is nothing. There is no other process which is waiting. So there is no connection from P4 to the next PCB. Okay. So this is why the PCB pointer field is used. PCB pointer field. Okay. It will store the address of the next PCB which is in the list for utilizing the CPU. Okay. So PCB field contents. So what are the various PCB fields and what are the what are the descriptions for that? Process ID. So the unique ID assigned to the process as its creation. Okay, so it is nothing but giving a unique name or a USN to a student. So next is parent and child's ID. So these IDs are used for process synchronization, typically for a process to check if child process has terminated. So that is what the example I gave. So one process can create a child process. So in such case, so this the parent will have the address or the you can say the name of the or ID of the child process, so that the parent has to keep track of the children. Okay, the parent has to keep track of the children process. Fine. So to keep track, first it has to remember the name of the child or the process ID. So that is why it will keep track of the process ID of the child process. Okay. So next is priority. So priority is important. So as we know, so in multi-programming system, so that we already discussed. So there, the higher priority process always gets the chance to execute in the CPU. So if the present process that is utilizing the CPU is having a lower priority compared to a newly arrived process, which is having a high priority. So then the present executing task or process will be preempted. It will be forcefully stopped or paused, and the CPU will be given to a high priority process. So to maintain that priority value, so where that value will be stored, that value will be stored in the PCB. Typically a numerical value, as I told. So greater the number, higher is the priority. So if there are two processes with priorities 100 and 200, so obviously the priority of the process having 200 is more. Okay. So the process is assigned a priority at its creation. Whenever the process is created, a priority number is given. So the kernel may change this number dynamically depending on the nature of the process. Okay, so this priority can be changed also based on the requirement. So next is process state. So as I told, process state, we will discuss in detail. So there are typically four process states. One is ready, next is running, next is blocked, next is completed. Fine. So these are the four process states. So in which state is the process, whether it is blocked, whether it is ready, or whether it is completed. So that is what the process state will have the information. Okay. Next is PSW. So program status word. This is a snapshot or an image of PSW when the process last got blocked or was preempted. So loading this snapshot back into the PSW would resume the operation of the process. So the flag informations, program status word information is very important whenever the process gets the chance to execute once again, because it has to continue from wherever it was preempted. It should not restart. Okay, if it restarts, then all the progress is gone. See, just imagine an example I'll give in your mobile phones. So whenever you open multiple applications and you try to switch between the applications, okay. So whatever you did in the previous in the application previously, that should be as it is saved. As it is, it has to be saved. It should not reload. So whenever you switch between applications, let's say you are playing a game and let's say you got a call, so you switch to call. So once you attend the call and you are done with the call, you go back to the game. So whatever the game progress that was made till that particular moment that you got a call, so that progress should be saved, okay, by that application or by the OS. So if it is not saved, what will happen? If you switch back to the game, it will reload. Okay, so this happens sometimes in mobile phones. You might have experienced this also, and this usually happens in mobile phones with less memory. So whenever the RAM of that mobile phone is less, so this will happen, reloading the application. So every time you switch between applications, that application reloads. So in that case, the progress made till that point will be lost. But that should not happen. That should not happen. That progress should be preserved, which is nothing but the PSW contents. So it is saved in PCB. Next time the process gets the chance to execute. So this PSW, which is nothing but the snapshot, okay, it will be reloaded so that the process can resume its operation. Okay. So next is the GPR, general purpose register contents. When the process last got blocked, so what were the contents of, let's say, register A, register B, right? Or register R0, register R1. So whatever the content. So all those contents will be saved in the PCB. Next is event information. Event information means, see, this depends on the process state. See, if the process state is blocked, as I told, there are four states. So if the process state is blocked, that means, see, a process gets blocked whenever it is waiting for an event, whenever it is waiting for something to happen. So that something can be a key press, that something can be a input from a temperature sensor or input from a light sensor. Okay, so like that. So that can be something. So it can be an interrupt. So whenever the process is waiting for something to happen, it will enter the blocked state. So whenever it enters the blocked state, so this event in this event information field, so it will write down, the OS will note down what is the process waiting for. Why is the process blocked? For which event? So here, process is blocked state. This field contains information concerning the event for which the process is waiting. Okay, whether it is waiting for a key press or whether it is waiting for a input from a sensor or whether it is waiting for a input from a light sensor or a temperature sensor, like that. Okay, why it is waiting for? That is what. So that is what event information. Next is signal information. It's information concerning locations of signal handlers. See, in case the process is communicating with other processes in the system, so that will be done using signal handlers. Okay, so the communication takes place between using signal handlers. So that information is there in the signal information field. And next is the PCB pointer field. So as I told, this is used for forming a list of PCBs. So I just showed that in this diagram. Okay, so after P1, in the next in the list is P10, and next in the list is P4, and this, for maintaining this list, giving the link, this PCB pointer is used. Okay. Yes, the same thing is explained here. Okay, go through this. So event information field, like that. Right. So next we'll talk about process states and state transition. So there is a field in PCB saying process state. So which are those states? As I told, 4 states. Which are those? We shall see. So an operating system uses notion of process state to keep track of what a process is doing at the moment. So to keep track what the process is doing, it will maintain the state of the process. So the kernel uses process states to simplify its own functioning. Okay, so kernel, as I told, it's the heart of the operating system. So to simplify its own functioning, it has created these states and maintaining the information regarding it. So the number of processes states and their names may vary across OS. But however, OS uses 4 fundamental states. Right? So in any OS, irrespective of the company of the OS, right? So usually there are 4 states fundamental. First fundamental state is blocked state. So as I told, when it is blocked, so a kernel considers a process to be blocked if it made a resource request and the request is yet to be granted. Okay. So one possibility is it made a resource request. So example, it has made a request for granting 10 MB of space to the OS. Okay, so and this request will be usually done using events or system calls. So once it has made the request, the OS has not yet allocated the 10 MB of space to it. So in this particular condition, the process enters the blocked state because it has made a request, but that request has not yet been granted. This is one case. Or see, it also enters the block state if it is waiting for some event to occur. So as I told, so that event can be a key press. Okay, turning off an LED or turning on an LED or an input from a sensor, like that. Right? So that is the event. So in both the cases, the process enters the blocked state. So whenever the process is in blocked state, so what is the condition? CPU should not be allocated to such process until its wait is complete. Okay, so a process in blocked state will not be assigned the CPU. Why? Because since it is already waiting for a event to happen or already waiting for a request to be granted, even though you assign the CPU for such processes, they will not be able to continue. They will not be able to execute the instructions. Why? Because unless and until that grant is granted, unless and until that request is granted, or unless and until that event for which it is waiting is completed or it happens, it cannot execute the next instruction. So even though you give the CPU to it, it will be idle. It will be kept idle. The process cannot proceed further. It cannot use the CPU. Even though you give it, it will not use it. It is unable to use it because it is waiting for something to happen. So until that thing happens, it will not be able to go to the next instruction. Right? So a process in blocked state should not be given the CPU. Just for the reason that even though you give it, it will not be able to make use of it. That's all. The kernel would change the state of the process to ready. The next state is ready state. So when the ready state will be entered by the process, when the request is granted or the event for which it is waiting occurs. So previously we saw that the process has entered the block state because it has made a request and it has not yet been granted. Okay, or it is waiting for an event to happen. And so what happens when that request is granted, or what happens when that event takes place? So as soon as that event takes place or the request is granted, immediately the state of the process is changed to ready. Okay, so such process can be considered for scheduling. Okay, so only the processes which are ready can be considered to scheduling for scheduling. So what do you mean by that is only the processes which are ready can only be given the CPU. So if you are considering it for scheduling means you are considering it to give the CPU, allot the CPU. So always remember the processes which are in ready state only will be considered for assigning the CPU or will be considered for scheduling. Okay. So next, the kernel would change the state from running of the state of the process to running. Okay, when it is dispatched. Okay, so the next process state we are talking about is running. When the process state will be changed to running, when a ready process will be given the CPU. Okay, whenever a process which is ready is allocated the CPU, the state of the process is changed to running. Why? Because it is currently making use of the CPU and it is making some progress. That is why it is known as running. Right? Next, the last state is terminated state. So the process state would be changed terminated when execution of the process completes or when it is aborted by the kernel for some reason. Right? Whenever the execution of that process completes, then such process state will be changed to terminated. So it is terminated. The same thing is given in this table. Go through this. So next we'll talk about process state transitions. So we discuss process states, which are the various states possible. Now we'll discuss process state transitions. So how do they transit? That is how the change in state takes place. So whatever we talked about here just now. So how the change in state takes place. First thing, it will be in blocked. So because it is waiting for an event or it has request for some resource. So once that resource is granted or event happens, it will go to running. Sorry, it will not directly go to running. It will go to ready state. Once it is in ready state, if it is selected to be given the CPU, then it will go to running. And in running state, if it completes, then it will go to terminated state. So same thing will be represented now in terms of a diagram. So state transition for a process PI is change in its state. So state transition is nothing but change in its state. So state transition is caused by the occurrence of some event such as start or end of an IO operation. When the event occurs, the kernel determines its influence on activities in processes and accordingly changes the state of the affected process. We saw that when the process state will change. So when a process PI in the running state, so a process is already in running state, right? If the process in the running state, it makes an input-output request. If it makes an input-output request, then its state is immediately changed to blocked. Because we saw that a process enters a blocked state whenever it requests for a resource or it is waiting for an event. Okay, that event can be an IO event or also input-output event. So a process which is in running state means it is given the CPU and the process is executing some instructions using the CPU. If it requests for an IO event, okay, an IO event to happen, then immediately that process state will be switched to blocked until that IO operation completes. So until that IO operation completes, so it can be a read from the memory. Let's say you have to read 100 memory locations, or you have to write 100 memory locations. Until then, until that process completes of reading or writing, so that process which has made the IO request will be blocked. It will be entered the blocked state. So at the end of such IO operation, the state of the process will be changed back to ready. So remember, from running it came to blocked. From blocked it will not go back to running directly. No, that state transition is not possible. From running it comes to blocked state. From blocked state it has to go to ready state. Because as I told previously, only ready processes can be given the CPU. Okay, so once it goes to ready state, then only it can be given the CPU. So from blocked state, it cannot directly go to running state. Fine. Similarly, state changes are made when process makes some request that cannot immediately be satisfied the OS, like granting a memory of 10 MB or 20 MB. In such state, in such condition also, process state is changed to blocked. So either it's the event it has requested or it has requested for a process, resource. Whenever the process requests for a resource also, it may enter the blocked state because that resource that it has made a request for is not available currently. Okay. So example, so some process which is in running state, it makes a request for the resource printer. Okay, it will make the resource request for a printer, but that printer is not free now. That printer is already being utilized by some other process. So in such case, whenever immediate request cannot be granted, so such process is, okay, it will be entered in the blocked state. Okay, or it will enter the blocked state. Okay, same thing. So next, the state of ready process is changed to running when it is dispatched, and the state of running process is changed to ready when it is preempted, either because a higher priority process comes or because its time slice elapsed. Right? So see, so that is what he talks about. So a running process, sorry, first we will start with ready. A ready process is changed to, the state is changed to running. Okay, the ready process state is changed to running whenever it is dispatched. Dispatch means it is selected to be given the CPU. Okay, it is given the CPU, it will change to running, and a running process will be, the state will be changed to, or transition will happen to ready state when, if the process that was given the CPU is preempted because some other higher priority task comes, so the present process will be paused. So in that case, it will enter the ready state. Or in time sharing systems, so whatever the allocated time of time slice, let's say 10 milliseconds, that is completed. So the quota that is given for each process is completed. Again, it will come back to ready state. The way it comes back to ready state, because it still needs the CPU further to complete itself. Okay, it still needs the CPU to complete itself. In that case only, it will enter the ready state from running. Right? So same thing. So whenever a running state, so eventually it completes itself, it is terminated. It will enter the terminated state if it completes. Right? So you can see a running process can enter the blocked state if it has made a resource request or an event request. Once that event request or the resource is granted, it will not immediately go to running, but it will enter the ready list. And you can see new processes always enter the ready list, and only the ready list will be considered for giving the CPU, or assigning the CPU. Right? So these are the four fundamental states. So that state transitions are given from ready to running. So when this will be done, whenever the process is dispatched or whenever the process is given the CPU. Okay, so the CPU begins or resumes the execution. So blocked to ready. So when this will happen, blocked to ready. So whenever the resource request is granted or the event has taken place, the IO event has taken. So here, so request made is granted or event has completed. This is from blocked to ready. So next is running to ready. So when this will happen, running to ready, if a process is already given the CPU and it is executing, and that process is preempted. Okay, that process is preempted or the time slice is over. Here, the process is preempted because the kernel decides to schedule some other process based on priority or time slice. Okay, so higher priority or a time slice. So next is from running to blocked. So when will the process state transition happen from running to blocked? So if that process which is running will request for a resource or a IO operation. Okay, so 5 major causes. So process request for an IO operation, process request for a resource like a printer. So process which wishes to wait for a specific interval of time. Okay, so let's say that process which is making use of the CPU, it wants to wait for a certain interval of time. Okay, so in that case also it will enter the block state. The process waits for a message from another process. Whenever the process communication is happening, so it is waiting for a message to be received from some other process. That message is very important. Without that message, it cannot continue its operation. So in that case also it is blocked. Process waits for some action by another process. So these are the 5 reasons why the process enters the blocked state from the running state. Then from running to terminated. So when this will happen? Self-termination. Self-termination means the process operation either completes its tasks or realizes that it cannot operate meaningfully and makes a terminate me system call. Okay. So it completes off. So whatever it wants to execute, it has done that. It has completed the execution. So it enters the terminated state, or it will realize that it cannot meaningfully complete the operation. That is why it will terminate. So next, other reasons may be termination by a parent. So as I told, so this parent process has created a child process. So this parent process decides that this child should be terminated. Okay, so no need of this further, so it can terminate. So it will make a system call. So this parent process will make a system call saying that terminate the process P11. So in such case also it will be terminated. Next is exceeding resource utilization. So there is a limit on whatever the resources the process can use. If that limit is exceeded, so the OS may limit what is the process, the resource it can consume. So a process exceeding the resource limit will be avoided. Okay. So let's say each process is decided to be given only 5 MB of space. If this process again requires another 5 MB, so the OS will say, so I cannot give that extra 5 MB. The maximum limit is reached by you. So either you can continue or terminate. That's all. Next reason is abnormal conditions during operation. So the kernel aborts processes if abnormal condition arises due to instruction being executed. It is execution of an invalid instruction, execution of a privileged instruction, arithmetic conditions like overflow, or memory protection violation. Okay, so this you might have seen in your systems whenever you try to install a third-party application, and if that third-party application is a virus that you're trying to install, if you have an antivirus in your system, so that antivirus will immediately terminate that program, and it will give you an alert saying that such and such program is trying to be installed, and I have terminated the install because it is a potential virus. So that message will be given by the antivirus. Okay, so that is what violation. So these are the conditions that can result in a process transition from running to terminate. So these can be asked. Okay, so explain the process state transitions along with description. So you have to write the diagram and this table. So next is suspended process. See, in some cases, so these four states are not sufficient to represent all the conditions of a process. When so there are certain conditions. So there are certain conditions that may not be or that are not possible to represent using these four states. In such cases, some scenarios which are not able, which are not possible to be represented using these four fundamental states. In such cases, the operating system decides to add more states. Okay, it will decide to add more states. So that is what we'll discuss in suspended process. Whenever those four fundamental states are not sufficient to represent all the scenarios, the OS decides to add these extra states known as suspended states. So you can see that example. Yeah, so along with these four states, running terminated ready block, you can see there are two more states added: blocked swapped and ready swapped. When blocked swapped and ready swapped. So this comes in the time sharing systems. Right? So if you remember the time sharing systems, that is where the concept of swapping comes. I will show you the diagram. Yeah, so you can see here the swapping is happening here. So initially the process P1 and P2 were there in the memory. Then you can see process P2 was removed from the memory and another process was given the chance, P3. So why? Because here P2 is replaced by P3 at 105. Why? Because P2 was not able to continue. Okay, so hence in that case, since it is not able to continue presently, it will be swapped out of the memory, swapped out of the main memory, which is the RAM, and a new process will be brought into the same position, P3, so that at least P3 can do its operation. So in the meanwhile, P2 is still waiting for that event why it is not able to continue. And once that event happens, it will be moved back or swapped in. Okay, it will be swapped in. So this is what swapped out and swapped in. Right? So in time sharing. So same concept is discussed here using this process diagram. Okay, process state transition diagram. What will happen here is, here, a kernel needs additional states to describe nature of activity that is not in one of the four fundamental states. So whenever those four states are not sufficient to represent all the scenarios, it will go for extra states. So consider that a ready or blocked state when it got swapped out of memory. So consider a process that was in ready or blocked state when it got swapped out of memory. So swapped out, as I told. So P2 was, let's say it was blocked because of some event, IO event that is taking place. So until that completes, it will be in blocked state and it cannot continue. So hence it will be swapped out of memory. So it is swapped out of memory and new process will be brought in. So this is swap in. So whenever the process P2 was swapped out, so which state was it in? Was it in ready state or was it in blocked state? Okay, so that has to be remembered because once it is brought back, once P2 is brought back, it has to resume that state. Okay, that is what is discussed here. So consider a process that was in ready or blocked state whenever it was swapped out of memory. Okay, so the process needs to be swapped back into the memory before it can resume its operation activity. Hence, it is no longer in ready or blocked state. So the kernel must define a new state for it. So that those states are known as suspended states. Okay, so you can see that here. So if the process is in ready state and it was swapped out, so then it will be swapped out to a new state known as ready swapped. So why it is known as ready swapped? Because it is suspended. So that process is suspended, but before it was suspended or swapped out, which was the state it was in? It was in ready state. So that is why it is known as ready swapped. So same thing will happen here also. Blocked. So let's say the process is in blocked state, that is, it is waiting for an event or a resource request. Okay, and in such case, suppose it is swapped out. Okay, so then it will be swapped out to a state known as, or it will be changed to a state known as blocked swapped. Blocked swapped. Right. So these two are extra states that are created, which are suspended states. Right. And you can see here, so these ready swapped or blocked swap states, they cannot be directly given the CPU. There is no connection from here to here. You can see that there is no possible state transition. No. Why? Because so they are suspended. They are not in the memory for time being. So if you want to schedule such processes which are ready swapped or block swapped, first they have to be swapped back to ready, or they have to be swapped in. They have to be first brought into the memory. And once they are brought into the memory from suspended state, right, and then they can be given the chance to execute. Right? That is why these are the two extra states. They are suspended states. So ready swapped and blocked swap. So when such transition can take place here. So according to that diagram, so the transition ready to ready swapped or block to block swapped is caused by swap out action. Okay, so that is what is there here. So from ready to ready swapped, it is swap out, and from block to blocked swapped, it is swap out. Okay. So the reverse state transition takes place when the process is swapped back into the memory. So blocked swapped to ready swapped. So this takes place if the request for which the process was waiting is granted, even while process is in suspended state. Right. So there is one more transition that we have to be seeing here. That is, see, even though a particular process is in blocked state and it is swapped out, so then it will be in blocked swapped state, and the event that it is waiting for, or the resource that it is waiting for, is granted, then immediately that the process state will be changed from blocked swap to ready swap. Why? Because the event that it was waiting for, or the resource for which it was waiting for, is granted now. Okay, so even though it is not in the memory also, it will be still updated to ready swapped. Right? These are the two extra states that are discussed here. And same thing is explained, go through it. So next is threads. So if you remember the diagram, so I'll again go to this. So the first class, so I had given an analogy. So program, so for the program, there will be processes. So there can be multiple processes. And for the processes, there will be threads. Okay, so T1, T2, T3. So I had given an analogy. So these are human beings. So programs means humans. Okay, so humans. So then process means organs. So I had given this analogy, organs. And threads means the cells. Right. So for humans to operate, or for humans to work, the organs should work. So for the organs to work, the cells should work. So for the program to execute or make progress, the process should make progress. And for the process to make progress, the threads should make progress. So that is what threads. That is what we'll discuss now, threads. So applications use concurrent processes to speed up their operation. So that we saw in the previous session, wherein each process can have multiple, each program can have multiple processes. So I showed that using this task manager. So wherein we saw that, so this, so example you can see here, this Microsoft Edge, this is one application, but it is making use of 19 processes. One application or one program which is making of 19 applications. So 19 processes like that. Okay. So same thing. So application uses concurrent processes. So Microsoft Edge, in our example, it is using 19 concurrent processes to execute its operation. Right? So however, switching between processes within an application incurs high process switching overhead. Right? That means see, so the Edge is using 19 processes. So if you want to switch between the processes of the same application, so it will take more time. That is what switching overhead. Because of the size of the process state information is large. So operating system designers developed an alternative model for execution of program called a thread. So that could provide concurrency within an application with less overhead. So that is why threads were developed. So that this switching overhead is switching time is reduced. So a thread is a program execution that uses resources of a process. So a thread will not be allocated separate resources. It will use the same resources that are allocated to the process. So which are those resources? We already seen the the process environment. Which are those process environment? So process environment consists of process context and process control block. So same environment, so same information, same resources will be made used by threads of this process. Right? It will not be allocated separate resources. So that is what is discussed. Yeah. So to understand the notion of thread, so let us analyze process switching overhead and see where the saving can be made. So process switching overhead has two components. One is execution related overhead. It is the CPU state of the running process has to be saved and CPU state of new process has to be loaded to the CPU. This is one unavoidable overhead. Next is resource use related overhead. So the process context also has to be switched. So it involves switching of information about resources allocated to process such as memory files, interaction of process with other processes. This is a large size of information that adds to process switching overhead. Fine. So these are the two overheads whenever a process is switched. So whenever a new process is given the chance to execute, so these two are the time consumed by the OS to do the switching. Okay, so that the switching takes place smoothly and the next process which gets the CPU will do its operation without any hiccups. So consider a child process PI and PJ of the primary process of an application. So these processes inherit context of their parent process. If none of these processes have allocated any resources of their own, so their context is identical. The state information differs only in the CPU states and contents of the stacks. So consequently, while switching between PI and PJ, much of the saving and loading of process state information is redundant. So thread exploits this feature. So what do you mean by this is, so as I told, one process can have multiple threads, right? One process can have multiple threads. So let's say we are in process P1 and it has the process context. So it has the process context. So this process has created two threads. Let's say T1 and T2. And since we already know that these threads, they will not be given separate resources. They will utilize the resource of P1 only. Fine. So in that case, so whenever the OS tries to switch between thread 1 to thread 2, so that is CPU is with thread 1. Let's say the OS gives the CPU to thread 2, then what will happen? See, whenever the context switching happens, the most of the content is same. Why? Because most of the content is shared because they have both T1 and T2 are utilizing the same context of P1. So most of the context is same between T1 and T2. Only minor differences will be there. If you take care of those minor differences, that is sufficient. Okay. So no majority differences will be there. So in that case, since only minor differences are there, since T1 and T2 are sharing the same context of the process, so those minor differences will be taken care easily, and it will take less time to switch between threads. Getting? So that is why thread concept was bought. So the process creates a thread through a system call. So again, how to create a thread or how to ask for a resource, how to ask for an event using system call only. So the communication between OS and process takes place through system calls. So thread does not have resources of its own, so it does not have a context. Right? So that is what I told. It is very easy to switch between T1 and T2 because both are using the same resources and same context with minor differences. That's all, minor. So it operates using the context of the process and accesses the resources of the process through it. So we use phrases threads of a process and parent process of a thread to describe the relationship between thread and process whose context it uses. Okay, threads of a process and parent process of a thread. So figure 2.5, so it will illustrate. So what is a thread and all? So you can see it. So this is a process. So in this process, there is a thread. So you can see thread. So there are multiple threads. You can count 3 threads are there. So all these 3 threads are making use of the same process. Same process. Right? And you can see context of the same process. PCB of the same process. But what is the change? So what is the change is, so as I told, there will be minor changes. So the entire thing is same. T1 and T2 are using the same context of P1 with minor changes. So what are those minor changes? So those changes you can see here. So for each thread, there will be a separate TCB. So TCB is known as thread control block. Okay, so for 3 threads here, there are 3 control blocks. You can see here. Thread control blocks or TCBs. So what these TCBs will have, similar to PCB, whatever the information PCB has, same information will TCB will also have the same fields. Okay, same fields. The PCB fields, whatever the PCB fields were there, same fields are there in TCBs also. And there will be separate stacks for each TCBs. So this is the minor change between each thread. So remaining everything is same. Only thing is this is the change. This is the difference. So this minor difference can be taken care easily without much time. Right? So that is what. So same thing is explained here. So thread states and state transition. So how the process state transitions make. So say in the same way, threads also do the state transitions. Right? So that's all. So no difference. So no more much difference here. Bearing difference. The threads do not have resources. Threads and processes are analogous. So the process transition is same as thread transition. So same concept. Since threads do not have separate resources. Since thread states and thread state transitions are analogous to process state transition. So same thing, okay, which we already discussed. So next is some of the advantages of processes over threads over processes. What are the advantages? So there is a table here. There are 3 advantages. So one is lower overhead of creation and switching, so that we saw. Why? Because since there are no separate resources, there is no separate context of threads, so they can be easily switched or switched or swapped. So more efficient communication. Why? Because threads of a process can communicate with one another through shared data. So why? Because you can see here, if T1 wants to communicate with T2, the communication is very easy. Why? Because since both are sharing majority of the context or majority of the resources, which includes memory also. So in memory, they will create a shared resource or shared memory slot, wherein this shared slot, T1 will write some message here, and this same message will be read by T2. Okay, so this is shared between T1 and T2. So they can read it as well as write it, so that they can communicate easily between each other. Fine. So that is what easy communication and simplification of design. So use of threads can simplify design and coding applications that serve requests concurrently. Fine. So since switching is easy, so design becomes easy. So next is implementation of threads. So you can see there are three methods of implementing threads: kernel level threads, user level threads, and hybrid threads. So we shall see about these threads in the next session.